Hey, this is Mark A. Altman.
And this is Darren R. Doctorman, and we are the inglorious
Treksperts.
Treksperts.
And
See,
this
we
week
can
we're,
we can do it together. We can say it at the same time.
now we know who the problem is. The
Not
problem
saying anything.
is clearly Ashley Edward Miller.
Who is
And
still out for the count, babies?
well, I keep getting messages from him using code 2. He doesn't realize the Romulans have broken code 2. It's very frustrating. I'm like, don't do that. Don't call me on code 2.
I mean, if it's affecting him, even with his Texas physique, then I don't know what to say.
I know, exactly. Exactly. You're about to see what a starship can do, what a podcast can do. So, this week it's Gorn to be Wild. It's our sit down with Bobby Clark, stuntman, cowpuncher. I don't know if he's a cowpuncher. Is that what they called them back in the day?
Well,
Cowpunchers?
it depended if they punched cows or not.
I don't know. But he played the, it's interesting because, people know him from the conventions having done, he was one of the guys who played the Gorn, right? He played the Gorn. Obviously, Ted Cassidy was the voice of the Gorn. But he was also the guy, more interestingly, who yells, "Festival, festival."
That was such a, as you'll hear in the interview, that was such a big surprise and delight to find out.
Because that's like cooler, actually.
It
Because
is.
a lot
It's
of
way
people played the
cooler.
Gorn. It's like, you're okay, you're the guy in the suit, right? And then Ted Cassidy does all the heavy lifting, so to
Yeah.
speak.
But to
But
be a participant in the Red Hour is way more fun.
totally, like Ben Stiller would probably love to meet him. Like, I
No
bet Ben
doubt.
Stiller, he bought a Gorn ahead. I bet he didn't even know that Bobby Clark was the guy in Red Hour. I bet he would freak out if he knew.
I bet he would too.
We're going to track that Ben Stiller down
I bet
at
he
Red
would
Hour
separate
Productions.
from his work self, and that's a little Severance joke.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I did a movie with Christine Taylor, his wife,
Yeah.
and she was great, and I love her, and I wish I still was in touch with her because I would say, you got to tell Ben that Bobby Clark is the
Well,
guy who yells
they
festival.
they aren't together anymore.
No, they're
That
back
might
together.
not be-
They're back
Are they?
together.
Oh,
They
good.
got back together during the pandemic.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
As
yeah,
so many
I'm-
people did.
I'm very happy for them because she's a sweetheart. And I remember when she said to me, so I was like, we were sitting around in Video Village. She says, I don't know, I was saying something about Star Trek, go figure. And she goes, yeah, you and Ben would really hit it off. He likes that Star Trek stuff too a lot. I said, yeah, I know.
Did she say Star Trek or Star
No,
Trek?
she said track. No, she
Okay,
said
good.
track.
Good.
And I said, yeah, but I can talk Marsha Brady with you too if you want.
Right.
We can talk Brady Bunch. I can keep up on that too.
Wow.
So she was like, okay, that's impressive.
Mom always
I said, I
said not
think
to play
so.
Star Trek in the house.
My nose. Um, but we had a chance to sit down with Bobby. Bobby's an interesting guy. But you talk about how Star Trek made stars out of everyone it touched, no matter, how small. And Bobby, it's hard to do an interview with a guy who 50 years ago showed up on set for a day or two
Right.
and put on a rubber costume and played a monster. Because at the time, he doesn't know this is going to become this iconic thing. It's just a gig. And he probably did hundreds of them throughout his career. So he doesn't remember all that much. But he's fun and he's likable and he's really great. I told the story.
I was going to say he's almost as fun as Gary Lockwood because they're sort of similar types, similar
Yes.
personalities.
He reminded me a little, but he didn't want to go as far as Gary did. We
That's
tried
for
to get
sure.
him to go
No
there,
one went
but he
as far
didn't.
as Gary did.
No. But I will say this, it was interesting, and I've told this story before. So, I went up to Bobby later in the convention. I said, he said, that was a really good interview. Thank you. Oh, you guys were terrific. And I looked and I said, I was being polite. I'm like, this is a nice book. It was, about playing the Gorn. He goes, you like it? I said, yeah, it's great. Would you like it? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, that's $50. And I'm like, what am I going to do then? Right? I'm going to say no. I'm going to look like a freaking cheapskate.
Well, you could just say I don't like it that much.
Yeah, I could have said that, I guess, but I didn't. So I give him the $50 and I take it. I promptly lost it. So I finally found it. I found it eventually, but it was like I could not find it in my luggage. I'm like, great. Not only did I buy this little pamphlet for $50, it's like great Jewish sports legends. It's so small. And I ended up, then losing it promptly, but I found it and it was all was well with
I
the
mean,
world.
that kind of sounds like the Shatner maneuver.
Kind of like the Shatner maneuver. That's right. Well, listen, we got an episode to share with these fine folks at home who are anxiously awaiting our interview with Bobby Clark. So stick around, because when we come back, it's Bobby Clark live at Galaxycon.
Don't you love it when things are both easier and more affordable? Like when the rain washes your car for you. Or like when you save up to 10% by bundling your renters and auto insurance with USAA. Bundle with USAA and start saving. Get a quote today.
This episode is brought to you by Pluto TV. Pluto TV has all the shows and movies you love streaming for free. That means laughter is free with gut-busting comedies like The Neighborhood, Key and Peele, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Mystery is free with countless cases to crack from Criminal Minds, Tracker, and Matlock. And thrills are free with heart-pumping hits like The Walking Dead and Defiance. Feel the free. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.
Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
And we want to welcome to the stage Bobby Clark. Barbie, come on out. We love your shirt, Bobby. Well, let's
how about now? Oh,
there we go. Well,
oh, wow. How now, brown cow? Yeah.
Bobby, I got to ask you, because you were actually a stuntman on Lancer. So are you the real life Cliff Booth? Because, of course, in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you know, Quentin based a lot of that on the show Lancer. And you actually worked on Lancer and were a stuntman on it. What was, being, working in the 60s, working on so many great shows, that experience, obviously, it was a very different world in entertainment. There was a lot less people saying, no, you can't do that, for better or for worse. Can you sort of set the table for us and tell us a little bit what it was like, working in Hollywood in the 60s? Because, of course, you've worked on so many great projects, and, of course, we'll get to Star Trek. But, back in the 60s, it was a lot of Westerns. You worked on Lancer. Later on, you would work on things like The Car. You even, worked with Kubrick on the tests for 2001. So just tell us a little bit about, sort of getting into the business and what it was like in that era for you.
Well, why did you just say 2001? We were just talking about that.
Oh, were you really? Oh, no, I didn't hear you talking about that.
Because they were talking about Gary Lockwood.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and we mentioned that we had a great talk with Gary Lockwood. So, yeah, the reason we mentioned 2001, of course, is you did the zero-G test for Stanley. And, Gary, of course, was one of the stars of the picture, but also a real rough and tumble guy. He was the real deal. He wasn't some, actor who was concerned about the size of his trailer and what kind of water he was drinking. I mean, he beat up an orangutan once. So tell us a little bit about just, what the business was like back in the 60s, sort of what the attraction for you was and, working at that time in the industry.
Well, the 50s was kind of a mixed up time in my life, because I just got out of the service in 1957. And I tried when I got out of the service, because I said to myself, no more horses, get away from that kind of a living. It's not going to get you anywhere. And I figured I'd get a suit and I'd get some stuff and I'd be a salesman or whatever. And I was a salesman. I sold Pontiacs, 1957 Pontiacs for, I guess it was 3 months. Never sold a car. My clothes all got dirty. So I went out and I bought me some Levi's and I was back into my old stuff again. But I had one of those lives that you didn't know what you wanted to do, but yet you wanted to do what you used to do. And it was kind of miserable. And then it was in the later 60s, early 70s that I decided to give up on all of this kind of stuff and go back to being a cowboy. And I became a cowboy and I rodeoed a lot and stuff like that. But through the help of a lot of the other cowboys and stuff like that, I asked them about, what do we guys do? What are we supposed to do for a living? Because I wasn't doing too good on the bucking horses. So anyway, they says, well, you can get a job in the motion picture business. I said, oh, what can I do there? And they told me. And I says, well, I'll give that a shot. So I started working in that, and I became an extra, they called it, SEG. They don't have SEG anymore, it's all SAG. But I did a few shows before that, before I even went into the service. Before I went into the Extras Guild. And one of them was called, good gosh, Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. was in it. And I was just a waiver. And then I did another thing with, I forgot the name of it already. I just had it out there, but I forgot it. Anyway, I did that, and then finally I got into being an extra, and I worked on that for several years. And I knew Gary Lockwood before a lot of that, but I didn't know him. I knew of him, and I went to the places that he went and stuff. But God, I worked with him on several different movies years ago. But I got into it, and finally I became a screen extra, and I started doing the cowboys on that too. And then it kind of rolled on, and I figured, well, why is that man coming in here and making $100 a day, and I'm working for $25 a day on a box lunch? And it worked way up from that. So I've been in the business since early 70s, I would say. And I got my first Star Trek job in 66.
66.
Was it 66?
66, yeah.
Well, all right. That tells you where I went. So anyway, to get back now, I hope y'all will excuse me because I'm getting a little tired up here and forgetting things. But we mentioned something at the first about Gary and I, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I really started getting in with Gary heavy on a thing called 2001: A Space Odyssey. Now, Gary was a star in that with this other actor who's also Kieran Durley. Kieran Delay. Yes, and I didn't double anybody on that show, but I was chosen by, I don't know, Lord, somebody helped me on that because I got a job in Hollywood in this old barn, and they were trying to simulate what it would be like in space. That was for Gary and for Kuhn. So we had a thing that they called the spaceship, and I'm all harnessed up and stuff, and I'm supposed to go through the air like this here and doing things, and going up to the ship if I can, and just doing all that kind of stuff. And they liked that, so they kept a lot of that stuff. And then I was the one that told Gary that, and that kind of blew him up there. So we got a little closer on all that stuff, and it worked out pretty good with Gary and I. That's how it goes, and still have. I worked on several Western shows with him, and I've been in Westerns all my life. And I guess you call me a cowboy, but I'm also a stuntman.
Well, you two were from the same area, right, in Saugus?
Yeah, Saugus, California, which is now known as Santa Clarita.
Right. They still call it Saugus, though. I live there, so I
you
know
live
where
in Saugus?
Yeah. I just had breakfast at the Saugus Cafe last week.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That place has been there for 100 years.
Right across from the railroad.
Yes, sir.
Right across from the railroad.
Yes, sir.
I used to eat there all the time.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Gary and I talked about that when we interviewed him a couple shows ago. But so what was that like when, you didn't know him back then, right? Or did you?
Well, I knew him, but...
you knew of him.
It was, hey, Gary, how are you today?
Right.
What are you asking for?
What do you want to know? Yeah.
Yeah, but he was good. And I say, what am I asking for? I don't give a shit.
Just being friendly like.
Yeah, that's it, just being friendly.
He's what now you would call a real hellraiser, I guess it would be the word.
Yeah,
and rapscallion.
We had some times together and whatever, and worked in the movies together. I remember we were doing a thing called Jesse James series, and it was with an actor from New York. I'll think of it sometime during this talk here, and all of a sudden I'll remember his name. But I had my first dialogue in the motion picture business was, "This horse ain't been dead long, Marshal." All right, that was my first line. And I had to get off my horse, and I go over there. I'm supposed to kneel next to this horse. It's a dummy horse. And that's when I look up, and we were chasing the James game, Jesse James. And that was my first dialogue. And then there he is. Now his name is gone again. Gary.
Right.
Gary started telling me, he said, well, you got to do this, and you got to do this. So he started pushing all these little things in on my acting and stuff. So I got along with it pretty good, and then pretty soon I just became actor, stuntman, and horsebacker. And I started doing all the Westerns. I worked on practically every Western on TV. I also worked on a few outside of TV, independent shows and stuff like that. And it was always doing stunts and doing a little bit of dialogue, and that's how it just kept on going and going. And then pretty soon they started getting off the horses a little bit, and they started riding the motorcycles. So I was into that too, because I was with the stunt guys, and we all would go out and ride our bikes. We were called the viewfinders, and just did all that. And pretty soon then the car stuff came in, and then we started doing car stuff.
But before that, you went, the wagon train to the stars. You went from being a cowboy to a space cowboy, in a sense. And if you look at the plot to Arena, it is like an old Western. Sort of the Gorn are kind of like the Native Americans that destroy the frontier town, and now we want vengeance. But what was so great about Star Trek was it asked the questions, why did they attack us? Well, ultimately, in a question of finding common ground. Cestus 3,
yeah.
AKA the old fort that was built, over by Vasquez Rock. So tell us about getting involved in, Arena. And then, of course, I think a lot of people may not be familiar with some of your other work on Star Trek. But let's talk about playing the Gorn, which has become
perhaps one of the most iconic aliens of all time, which you could never have imagined back in 1966. It was just a gig.
They even put it on T-shirts, I understand.
I got a picture.
What a handsome film.
Yeah,
It's a selfie.
But anyway, okay, to get into my thing in the Star Trek. Now, I had been in the service for quite a while before I was the Gorn. And I had done shows with the director, who was Marvin Chomsky, and he was the director on it, and I worked with him on other shows. And one day he calls me up and he says, "Bobby, I got a job for you. You want to work on it?" And well, naturally, I want to work on it. I'm doing this in the business. But I said, "What is it?" He says, "I can't tell you now." He says, "But you're going to like it." So I went on like this for a couple of weeks. And then finally, I got a call to go to the wardrobe department at the studios. And I went over there and checked in and went in the room. And there was no wardrobe. I went in there to get wardrobe. There was no wardrobe. I called the guy up. I says, "There's no wardrobe in there. What am I supposed to do? Where do you want me to go?" He says, "The wardrobe is in there. It's hanging on the bars and stuff like that." And I said, "Well, I don't see them." So he came in and he showed me what it was, and it was the uniform of the Gorn. And I didn't think anything of it. I'll do it. I'm in the business to do it.
When they gave you this thick costume of a lizard monster to wear, you didn't realize they were sending you out to the desert yet.
No, I didn't know anything. I know that the costume fit. It was tight, but it fit. It was made out of a diver's wetsuit was the base rubber in it. And then the man named Bob Chang was the man who put all the muscles and stuff like this on it. And he helped, forgot that guy's name, and I've been with him for years. The man who entered into with the Star Trek stuff. Can't think of his name.
Are you talking about the producer on that, the writer Gene Kuhn?
Yeah.
Gene Kuhn, the writer?
Or Gene Roddenberry.
Or Gene Roddenberry.
Gene Roddenberry was a producer on it, and this wardrobe man worked with him a lot. They made the uniform up, and then I became the Gorn, and I never had any dialogue until I got on the show. I was only on it for 3 days. And we got along well, and I did the fight that I had to do with Shatner. We did it and got over with that.
I'm guessing those were 3 pretty long days, because there are a lot of shots that they had to get. And you can see at some point the sun had gone down and they got big reflectors with the big stage lights.
Well, that was when it started getting pretty dark.
Yeah.
But it never got black. But, the costume was like I said, it was all rubber and it all closed up. But it was a hectic time, because when I wore the costume, it got hot. It was in last month of November. I think it was November.
Which is still very hot in Los Angeles.
Yeah, and it was really hot and out there in Vasquez Rock. But it wasn't excruciatingly hot, because every time I would be called to do something, I would put the head on and I would put the tunic on and go out and do what I had to do. And the minute I did this one scene, the director would holler, "Cut." And then I would go back, get on my ladder, because I couldn't sit in a chair. But I got on a ladder, the guy came and he removed the head, and we opened it up, and I got cool again. So people always say, "God, that must have been hot." But, you work here, you get a cut, they go film something else, and you're not in it, then you're cooling off. So And it always worked out pretty good to do that.
I'm sorry. Most people don't realize the amount of waiting that it takes, especially for a crew on location, where they have to put everything together and get everything ready. Right. So there's, for the artists, it's a lot of sitting around waiting for them to shoot you.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of times when it don't go too well, and then they got to do it again.
Figure out something else.
And they got to do it again, and oh, good gosh.
I want to ask, because you mentioned that the heat wasn't as much of a factor because there'd be short takes. You'd be able to take the that helmet, the head off and get water. But I would imagine your vision was very obstructed by the eyes. And then also, unlike a soundstage, which is flat, Vasquez Rocks is very rocky. So walking and certainly acting and fighting on that surface must be very, very difficult.
Well, the fight we did was a rather simple fight. Bill had a stunt guy that worked for him, and I did my part with the Gorn, and there was another guy too that I can't remember his name either right now, but we did the fight. It was just a short little fight, and it didn't take long to do, but we had to do it a few times to get it put in the groove to where the director liked it. We also, I kind of lost track now. Again.
Well, just how, to actually move and perform in that with the limited eyesight and walking in that costume.
The eyesight was, the eyes on the Gorn are sequences. They were everything psychedelic looking through them, but there was holes going out of the nostrils that I could see through that. Also, the mouth part of it, where it was a head that came on, and when I moved this, then the mouth would open and close. Well, they had black makeup on here, so they couldn't see my mouth, but I could sometimes, when I'm walking, if I bent and looked, I could see where I was going. It was really tough walking because the feet were probably about this long on there, and I'm walking in through sagebrush and all kinds of stuff out there on it wasn't desert, it was just Vasquez Rock.
But, I think for the people who don't know, Vasquez Rocks it's what's inside the SAG zone. You don't have to pay your actors extra money to go. And so to go and find a location that could be an alien planet can be awfully far off. The reason Hollywood shoots so many sci-fi and prehistoric movies at Vasquez Rocks is it's something that's relatively close to Los Angeles, but has this really unique topographic quality that feels alien.
And they don't have to pay to put people up overnight. Because it's within the 30-mile zone.
Yeah, they bust you back and forth. Fortunately, I live about 20 minutes from there, so I'd just get in the car and I'd go do my work. That was it. But I did a lot of work at Vasquez Rocks. I did a lot of westerns there, and numerous. I did a lot of them. I worked on Rawhide there. I worked on I have Gun Will Travel there, and just about all of them. And even sometimes in Big Valley, we'd go out there. Sometimes we'd go out to Little Rock and head up toward Bishop and do location work there. But they're, like he says, they got to put you up sometimes.
Yeah. One of the great things about Vasquez Rocks is, besides that big jutting rock in the area, it has a lot of side areas that aren't as recognizable that they can, make look like anything. They put a little, fake trees or whatever over here and completely redress it. So it is really efficient for a crew to work there. They just turn around and shoot this way, turn around and shoot the other way.
And at the time you were working, it also had that fort that was built for Bengal Lancers, which is also used in arena for Cestus 3.
I didn't work on the Bengal Lancers,
right?
But I did a lot of work in Vasquez Rocks, and I could never just sit back and remember where it was, especially now. because we're looking at what was probably about 50 years ago.
Yeah. More than that.
And thank you. And you know, the sagebrush then was big, and it had little sagebrushes growing and stuff. Well, through all this stuff that they do shooting there, well, they don't have that stuff growing there anymore. So they've got to go to the place and get it and bring it in and set it up, and they'll make the set. But the thing about the rocks is, and I used to get a kick out of that, is I would watch people go up that big, steep incline of the rocks. And they go up on their toes and in their hands sometimes, and they go up there. But I have yet to see anybody ever walk down that hill.
Yeah.
They're heels and butt. Heels and butt. They're scooting down the damn road because that thing is steep, very steep. And I just get a kick out of them because they go up there really happy that they're going up there, and then when they get up there, they look around all this, and then they decide, well, okay, how do we get up? How do we get down?
And there's a good chance you are going to fall.
They could scoot, and some of them would slide. And you don't want to go this way when you slide, because if you do going down, you're going to go over.
Bounce a couple times.
So anyway, that was the trick on the Vasquez Rocks thing.
Now, you did some other stunt work on Star Trek. I think you were in the episode Return of the Archons, which, of course, during the famous Red Hour sequence, that was shot over at 40 Acres, which was Lucille Ball's studio, used to be the old RKO studio, where they had that whole, town from that city. And do you remember anything, again, and as you pointed out, this is a long time ago, but anything you remember about shooting that episode, and also the 40 Acres backlot, which was so extraordinary?
Well, yeah, I remember Return of the Archons very well, because that was a very interesting part. I had dialogue in it. I had some stunt work in it where I would come in and I'd break through the front of the store window, and I'd run inside and I'd do a few things in there which we didn't see, but then the next thing they saw was me coming out, and I'd holler, "Festival, festival." And, I do these pictures here, and I even says, well, that would be a good picture if I could get me to do that. So I had the guy get me a picture of the when I came out and ran at the camera, and I said, "Festival, festival." Well, all you could see was the two lines of my nose. So I never got to use that picture. I always say, if ever I can find a picture where that damn nose didn't show, it would be there. So that was Return of the Archons, and like I said, that was most of my dialogue was festival. But now I did another one there called the
Mirror.
What was the Apple?
The Apple. That's right.
Yeah, I did the Apple where I was a worker of Vol. No, yeah, I was a planetary creature, person that we worshipped a god called Baal, and we had no relationships with the women and with the girls, so it was a strange planet. Well, when Kirk and them came down, one of the actresses was with Chekhov.
Yeah, Celeste Jarnell.
Yeah, so they started holding hands and stuff, and that made the people of that race very angry. So then we had to kill all those people. Well, they weren't fighters, but we attempted to kill them, and they beat us up and went about, and that was the end of that. But now I was a stuntman on that.
Do they paint you all orange?
No, but they made me wear a blonde.
The blonde wig. Yeah.
Wig, yeah.
It's interesting that you were one of the followers of Vol because, obviously there's a lot of stunt work for red shirts. They killed a lot of security guards in that they were blowing up. And in fact, I think one of the stuntmen was really hurt on that episode during one of the pyro explosions. But so maybe it was good that you weren't one of those guys. But what can you tell us about that set? Because that was a really remarkable set they built for Vol that Matt Jeffries built with the giant mouth and the whole thing that they would feed, the lizard head, and ultimately became a toy for Mego.
It almost looked like the Gorn, didn't it? Almost. It almost looked like the Gorn.
Felt like home.
Well, that was pretty good, but I don't remember them killing anybody. They didn't kill anybody. But,
well, no, they didn't. But one of the stuntmen got hurt with one of the explosions when they were running.
The security guard, when he's on the rock and it blows up.
Accidentally.
Yeah, because I don't think I was there that day. I think I only worked one day on it, and that was when I...
Did you get to hold one of those big sticks to break
that's what I went to charge. There was 3 of us that came around that out of Vol.
Right.
And we were going to fight with Kirk, and it wasn't Nimoy. I don't remember who it was, but
it was Keith Andes and David Soul were the other Vol followers, I think.
I'm sorry?
Wasn't it David Soul and Keith Andes were the other followers of Vol?
I don't really remember the names of all the actors and stuff. And I knew a lot of the stunt guys, but they did their thing, and I did my thing. And
you recognized them at lunch, and that was about it.
Yeah, at the bar across the way.
Sure.
But and then there was the other one I did. It was called Mirror, Mirror,
right? Where
there was 2 Spocks, 2 Gorns, and everything like that. Well, I was one of Chekhov's henchmen on that, and I got shot in the elevator shaft. So that was a quick day right there, because I was holding on to Kirk, and all of a sudden this other guy pulls out a phaser and shoots me, and I go down and I start to get up and he shoots me again, and then they got me in that pose. Well, I do have one of those from that show. So let's see, we went to the Apple, Mirror, Mirror, Arena. That was about it. I did 4 of the original series of Star Trek.
It must have been nice on something like Mirror, Mirror, because that's just stage work. You were over on the stages at Paramount, which was then still the RKO Desilu side, but not having to go out to a Vasquez Rocks or to one of these locations.
It was a farther drive down to the studio.
Yeah, for you, I guess it was. Yeah,
it was all at the studio except for Arena.
Yeah. Did having come from doing all these westerns and everything, did you feel like was there being on those sets, were they impressive to you, or was this day's work? I mean, really remarkable production design. Was there a sense of did you feel that way when you were there, or just day's work that didn't really?
Well, that was all later, the day's work part, because. I've been in the business for quite a while, and when I first got in the business as an extra, I was in awe. I mean, everything was, wow, this is how this is done, and good, did it really do that? And you look and you see it, and you don't understand how this goes, but then eventually it starts wearing into where you're knowing how this is working and how that's going to work. And, when you can go into the jail cell and take a nap, but those happen too on the sets. And, it's just, it turned that way. But then later on, as it got there, it became a job. It became a day's work here, a couple of days' work there. If you're lucky, you got on a feature and you'd work a week and a half. But you didn't work every day. You skipped days and went to different locations with the same outfits that was shooting the show. And eventually, it becomes to a daily work. And that's when you start learning how to play pitch and cards and how you can keep away from. You wanted to keep your face out of the camera. You know, there's a lot of bar scenes that you do when you're doing the westerns. You're gambling or something, or you're drinking at the bar. You always keep your head and your face away from the camera, because if your face is in the camera, you're done with that episode.
Yeah, they know you're in that scene and they can't use you anywhere else.
That's it. So I've always been fortunate. I had one Gunsmoke that I did 3 different parts in it. But I got away with it. So I had a beard on, and then I had a mustache. Then I was clean shaved, or I doubled somebody, and it worked out, and it was always that way. You get a job, and you hope it lasts, but sometimes they don't last. But then, on the other hand, if this ain't hiring, that one would hire, or this one would hire. We were doing very well with the Cowboys for quite a while, and that was always great.
Was it fun? Did you have fun?
I had fun, but it wasn't the kind of fun that you really liked it, because you were working with other people that do the same thing that you do. Yeah. And there's always that little feeling that, well, I could have done that better than he did. or, gee, I wish he did that. I wouldn't have broke my arm, or something like this. And it's the guys are the guys. Now, when you get into a big barroom fight, they usually cut that up into different areas, and they do the fight there. But you always got a couple of guys that you're going to be doing your little set with. You know, you're going to hit him, and that guy's going to hit you, and you're going to go down, or you're going to get up, and you're going to get knocked over the table. I mean, it's always something like that. But when they holler cut, you go on your own, and you're just waiting for the next shot.
I got to ask you, because, of course, Gene Roddenberry also served in World War II. Yes. And, in fact, the original name of the Enterprise was going to be the Yorktown. And he changed it from the Yorktown to the Enterprise. Mm-hmm. Did you ever have any dealings with Gene at all, or ever talk to him? And
no, oh yeah, I spoke to Gene, and I'm very good friends with his son called Rod. We call him Rod. Sure. For Roddenberry, and it's he has his own production thing going, and he does well with that. And I've worked with him on that, and I see him at the conventions all the time. And yeah, Rod's I'd say he's a pretty close friend, and but still, I don't rely on him for anything. And you know, he calls, and we'll go out and have lunch or something, and that's about it. And we don't pal around or you know, do that. He's married, I'm married. Oh, am I married? But anyway, that's, you know, older you get, the more married you get too.
Well, you mentioned as time went on, the horse work went away because Westerns kind of went away. You started doing the horseless carriage. You started doing car work. And of course, you were worked on one of the classic evil car movies of all time, The Car. So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about, like, car work, I would think is different than when you're doing fight scenes. You don't need somebody to train you to do a fight scene, but car work, how do you prepare to be a stuntman doing car work?
Well, that is, you got to be intelligent, you got to be on time, you got to have quick everything else. But you got to be stupid, too. You got to be stupid, too. Because who is going to sit there and drive a car off of a cliff or something and stay in it? But after a while, you do, and you learn how to do it. It's well, I don't know how you explain it. You get in a car and you're driving it. And, you know how to turn it sharp, so you do this. You know how to make it do a 180 or a 360. And these things are things that you do in cars. Now, sometimes you have to do it, and you have a wreck or you have something that won't work right, and that's not right to have. I took the mirror off a car one time, and I got more help just because I took the mirror off the car than I would have if I'd have taken the door off the car.
I imagine that there's a lot of trust that you have to have in the stunt coordinator and his crew when you're getting ready to do a car stunt. I mean, I would imagine that the trust has to be roughly proportional to how stupid you need to be to do the stunt.
Well, yes. Yeah, you gotta trust the other guy, but you trust in him because he's supposed to be the guy that helps you. Well, yes, he helps you, and he helps you. God knows he helps you a lot. But you don't use that as part of the next job. You just eat that up and hold it here. And when you're driving and you're trusting that this other guy is going to be right where he's supposed to be, when you're where you're going to be, and you're going to have a hell of a smash up. So yeah, you got to trust each other up to that point. And if it works out good, you're, hey, yeah, great. Hey, whew, we lived through that one.
So, well, I think we have time for like one or two questions. Before, so if anyone has any questions they want to ask,
please.
There's a microphone right there if you want to walk up to the microphone. And then, of course, you also worked on Cleopatra Jones, which the heyday of blaxploitation movies. Yeah. I imagine that must have been interesting.
I worked on that when it was up on the buildings, and we were walking on the edges of the buildings and stuff like that. It was just running around stuff. It was a stunt job. Yeah, and we didn't care who was black, white, Chinese, or anything. We worked with them, and they're all good people.
Great. I think you have a question?
We have run a little bit over. We don't have time for questions today.
Oh, great. Okay, well, nobody came out with the sign, so. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Well, listen, Bobby, thank you. This was a delight, and we appreciate you being here.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
So good, so good, so good.
Get ready, because Clear the Rack is on at your Nordstrom Rack store. Now through Monday, find incredible deals on Wear Now styles. On sale for even less at Nordstrom Rack. Take an extra 25% off red tag clearance throughout the store from brands like Adidas, Marc Jacobs, Steve Madden, and more. All sales final. The best stuff goes fast. So shop this sale at Nordstrom Rack today. Please see NordstromRack.com or ask a store associate for details.
Business taxes. We're stressing about all the time and all the money you spent on your taxes.
This is my bill?
Now Business Taxes is a TurboTax small business expert who does your taxes for you and offers year-round advice at no additional cost, so you can keep more money in your business. Now this is taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com/business. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service.
And we're back. We're back with Bobby.
Perhaps there is hope for us after all.
Yes, this is your opponent speaking. Who played the kid? That the Metron. Who played the Metron? That's who we should talk to next.
Well, the voice was Vic Perrin.
Oh, I know. Let's see. What Vic Perrin did so many voices. Can you name them all?
Well, he obviously did the voice for the Metrons.
Yep.
He did Nomad.
Yep.
And he did one more. He did.
It's not to be confused with Bart LaRue.
No, Bart LaRue did a couple as well. Vic Perrin also did.
He was the voice of the Hawkins, wasn't he?
Well, he was the leader of the Hawkins.
He was the leader of the Hawkins.
He
was Lieutenant Hulkin. Lieutenant Hulka. Dun, 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 dun.
Oh my God! Dun, 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 dun.
That's the Hawkins' new theme now. Dun, 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 dun,
He was
dun.
the Incredible Hulkin.
See, you took it and plussed it. That's what we do in the business. You take something that's funny and you make it better, you plus it. Darren just took something that was somewhat funny and made it very funny. So good for Darren.
Thanks. Good for me.
Good for you. Good for you.
Well, and of course, Vic Perrin was mostly known as the voice of the controller of the Outer
controller?
Limits. Controller, yes.
Yeah. In the Outer Limits, yeah. But nobody remembers that show anymore, sadly.
No, they're all dead, okay? Can I go now?
At least the Twilight Zone is like on Pluto now, so maybe people are watching it. You know, but the Outer Limits people don't know. It's so sad.
It's true. It was it was long ago. Let's just
I got my kids to watch Twilight Zone and they loved it. You know, they didn't watch all 5 seasons of it, but they watched it. And I don't think I could get them to watch Outer Limits.
Yeah, to be honest, I was never a huge Outer Limits fan either. Because
why I wasn't?
I'm not a Monster Kid. Monster Kids were fans of the Outer Limits.
See, this is why I wasn't. You having lived in New York a little bit,
right?
Because it was on Channel 9. Channel 9 was the shit channel. Like Channel 11 was the good channel. Like all the good stuff was on Channel 11. Star Trek, The Brady Bunch, Mission Impossible, The Odd Couple, all the good repeats. Batman, Channel 11. Channel 5, like it had Casablanca occasionally. It had some decent stuff. Channel 9.
Channel 9 had the worst movies on the $1 Million Movie.
Yep. The worst movies. Other than King Kong, it was awful.
Yeah.
And so it had the Outer Limits.
Yeah.
So it was inherently worse because Channel 11 had Twilight Zone also.
Right.
But Channel 9, Channel 9 had the Mets. That's all they had that was any good. Channel 11 had the Yankees. Channel 9 had the Mets.
Of course, Channel 9 also had Joe Franklin. So it was a little different audience.
Different audience. Not a good one, mind you.
You know, who's to say?
That's why, I didn't watch, I never saw UFO because it wasn't on Channel 11. Space 1999 I watched because it was on Channel 11.
Was on Channel 11.
Yeah.
But
Channel 11 Alive was alive.
UFO, I think, was on one of the UHF channels.
I think it was on 9.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's so long ago, I can't remember.
You know what was on the PBS was Doctor Who. I would watch Tom Baker Doctor Who on Channel 13.
Sure.
Yeah.
But, I'm going to take my life in my hands by saying I thought it was boring then, too.
What, Doctor Who?
Yeah.
I like Doctor Who.
I didn't say
I'm not like a crazy Doctor Who fan, but
I thought it was a little boring.
Yeah, I liked it back then.
This is from a kid who loved 2001 when I was 7. So if I said it was boring, you can bet it was.
And then when I came on board Librarians as a co-EP, Dean was a huge fan of Doctor Who, so I had to watch it because it was an influence on Librarians. And I was really into it. Like, I really enjoyed it. Like, I watched the David Tennant years. I watched Matt Smith. And then I just never watched it again. It was weird because I was really into it. I really liked it. There were some great episodes, but then it didn't hook me for some reason. It's like I loved the episodes I watched, most of them, a lot of them, but then I just never stuck with it. I don't know why.
Well, it's okay. Don't be.
I'm not beating myself up. Maybe because it wasn't on Channel 11. I don't know. Anyway, you watching that new Squid Game, or should we save that for another episode?
We can save that for another episode, but I did watch it.
Yeah. We'll tease it. We're gonna talk about another episode. But you know what I will tell you, because Ashley has been sidelined with the flu. It's not the disease from the naked now. I know you all think it's like the naked time or something, but he's it's not. It's deadly years. No, he has the flu. He just has the flu. That's what I had. And the problem is, I always like when I'm sick, to go to stuff I've seen. So Pluto's perfect. You just put on Pluto. Yeah. It seemed every time I turned on Pluto, and The Children Shall Lead was on. I don't know what it was.
Wow.
Like I turn on, I turn off, and then like a couple of days later, I turned on. It was The Children Shall Lead again. I couldn't get away.
Did you
so disappointed?
Did you get ice cream and get chocolate wobble and pistachio and peach?
I did not. But I did. And then I go to Deep Space Nine channel or Voyager channel, but they never had anything good on either. It was weird. It was just I was striking out left and right.
It's weird. You got to time it correctly.
Yeah, timing was all off. Maybe I was in a flu haze. I don't know. Not good. But I'm feeling better now, except for this cough. So,
well,
anyway,
try and get better because we need you badly.
Badly. Oh man, we're gonna do some. You guys, you don't even know what you're in for. We got some great stuff coming up. We are going to be doing the Star Trek Trekspert stage at Trek to Vegas, August 6th and 10th. We're planning some really great stuff. We're going to blow the doors off, as they say. Where'd that expression come from? Blow the doors off. Who blows the doors off? Decompression? The shuttle bay?
Are you going to blow the doors off? That's probably from like maybe dance halls and so many
maybe
people were in it and they bust through the doors, or
It could
maybe
be.
it's just from the Italian Job.
I don't know. Maybe. And speaking of blowing doors off, I don't know what that has to do with anything, but Galaxycon Richmond, we're going to be back March 27th and 30th. That's 4 days. 4 days of Treksperts goodness. And they're going to have an amazing guest lineup. It's going to be fantastic. It's the ultimate festival of fandom. You can go to galaxycon.com, find out more. And of course, they got a bunch of shows coming up in a city near you. So you want to check out galaxycon.com to find out about all the great cities that Galaxycon will be
They have a
visiting.
wide selection.
And there's a good chance you might find us there too. Not necessarily, but hopefully you'll see us as well.
If everything goes according to plan, yeah, we'll be
If
there.
it goes to plan, then you'll see us as well. And that's great. And of course, our Pete Holmesford, Brian Mixer, our producers, Mark Rivera, our audio sound mixer, John Carney's our social media manager. And Glorious Treksperts is copyright 2025 by Treksperts Plus. It's available wherever you listen to podcasts and now on video on Spotify and YouTube. And this is very important. You can review Inglorious Treksperts wherever you listen and share your thoughts with us on your favorite social media platform or via email at trekspertsplus@gmail.com or on the Inglorious Treksperts Discord channel. Check that out. It's really great. If you need help, John Carney's there to help you. Just to, give him a ring on
Shout out for
the
him
old
if he
horn,
appears.
and he'll help you out. Your friendly angel, come
That's
to
right.
me. Yeah, that was definitely a flu-induced vision. Anyway, I think that's really about it. Hopefully Ashley Miller will be back to join us soon because I know you miss him, and we miss him.
We all do.
We need our executive officer. I guess what would our ranks be if we were on a starship?
We don't have ranks, Mark.
No, but if we were,
No.
we were I would be a captain. I mean, you know
would you?
that. Yeah, would you be first officer? Or would you be like first officer?
I
Or
don't
would
know.
you...
I don't know if I want to be a first officer. I might be the chief medical officer.
Chief medical officer.
So
What Ashley would
after
be
all,
science
my
officer.
nickname
He's a
is
nerd.
Doc.
Oh yeah, you got to be chief medical officer. Yeah. So
And,
would Ashley be like the science officer?
I think he would be what was Kevin Riley?
No, that's Rob. Rob would be Kevin Riley. He'll take you home again, Kathleen, and again and again.
Yeah.
No?
I don't know. Only Ashley can say what his.
Okay, we're going to ask him. Only no man can say. Xanadu, a
Maybe
pleasure.
he's the ship's counselor.
Oh my God, what is he going to do? Counsel people to kill themselves?
Well,
Come on. I don't know if he'd be a very good counselor.
Don't you quote Free Enterprise to me?
Oh, damn it. You caught me on that one. I have a funny story, but I can't share it on air. I'll tell you
All right.
afterwards. Speaking of Free Enterprise and that line.
Yeah. What else is
yeah.
there? You gave all the info.
I did. I'm just wondering who else is on our team. Well, I guess John Carney, what would he be? Well, we can figure this out another time, another episode.
I think
Mark Rivera would be Uhura because he's opening hailing frequencies.
Okay.
Yeah. No?
Yeah.
No.
No, I don't.
Not
think
so
Mark
much?
would like to be Uhura.
Okay. He could be Tyler. Jose Tyler.
Wow.
No?
So that's digging deep into the past.
I know. Who would Brian Mix want to be? Brian, who would you want to be? He's mixing it right now.
I think
so he's
Brian wants to be Spock.
Yeah, but I think Ashley's going to be Spock.
Well, I don't think so.
But he's not Spock. He's science officer.
He's the science officer. He's because Ashley is not logical.
That's true. That's true. But
Ever.
he doesn't have to be a Vulcan. It's the rank. It's not the.
It's still like a Vulcan there, if possible.
Okay. We'll come back to this conversation. This is much too complicated. I thought this was a little show out thing, but it's clearly much more complicated than a show out.
Sure is.
It's a show in. So we'll go. We'll have to come back to this at some point. Anyway, well, thank you all for joining us on behalf of Darren R. Docterman, Mark A. Altman, and he's not here, but he thanks you
Ashley
anyway.
E. Miller.
Ashley E. Miller. Keep on trekking, ingloriously, of course. Shh.